Congratulations, you've just finished row 2. So at this point, before I start on, I would count my stitches and make sure I still have 43. And at this point, if you've discovered you've got 44 or you have 42, my advice is to frog it. In other words, take the needles out and rip it and start it again. Us experienced knitters, we do spend lots of time frogging and tinking, which is ripping and undoing work. It's the difference between an okay project and a really nice looking project. It is part of knitting, making mistakes. So if you don't have the right number of stitches at this point, I wouldn't try correcting, because there are methods to correct. I would just frog it, rip it, rip it, rip it. Okay, anyway, so this is where we are at in the pattern. So it says the next 12 rows will repeat. So even though the next row should be row 3, right? We've done one row, we've done row 2, so logically it would be row 3, but you see I'm starting at row 1 again. So even though the next row should be row 3, we will start again as though it is row 1. Start using your row counter. So that is one of these lovely little devices, and I'll show you about that in a second. So just have your row counter handy. We're going to just put that off to the side here. Don't need it right at the moment. Get the instructions. Okay, so start using your row counter. So row 1 is knit. So we're going to pretend that this is row 1 and we're going to knit it. So I put that aside. All right, knitting again. That's not difficult. We've done a couple of rows. Now we're going to do it again. This might be hard to see now, we're white on white here. Maybe I should have a black background. Anyway, so we're going to knit. Now again, there should be 43 stitches when you're finished knitting on the needle. If there's not, I would rip it out, frog it. It's not worth trying to save, okay? So I'll pick this up near the end of this row. You go ahead and knit your 43 stitches. All right, I'm just about at the end of that section. Technically row 3, but my pattern says to consider this as row 1, so I've got 4 stitches left. I'll just, that's 40, 41, 42, and 43. Okay, so now this, you have just finished this part of the pattern that says to treat it as though it is row 1. So you just finished row 1, and that is when you will use your counter. So you see how the numbers, you can tell what row you want it to be. So that'd be row 1. This would be row 11. That would be row 21. So and this is row 0. So we just finished. So what is on your needle? People get mixed up about how to use these. So what is on your needle? I just finished row 1. Boom. That's what's done. So if you were to, and then this just goes on the end of the needle that you're not working with. So in terms of a circular, I put it on that side. If you were using straight edge needles and your work is all piled up on this needle, you put the stitch counter on the empty needle. That's how it works. Don't put it on the front of your work. It doesn't make sense. It goes on the needle that's empty. That changes from time to time, but anyway. So so now I could go have coffee or go on a trip for a week, and then I'd come back and I'd go, oh, where was I on this knitting? I don't remember. So then you go, oh yes, I got my row counter, and oh right, I finished row 1. I'm finished row 1. So now we get to move on to row 2.